Powell.
Here.
Charles, we know will be here soon. Long.
Here.
Moss.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, I need a motion to approve the minutes from July 13th, moved by Commissioner Moss, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Minutes are approved. Next up, we have approval of the agenda. I would like to make note that we have removed item number 10C this morning, and that there's an amendment to item 9D, just so everybody knows.
What was 10C?
10C was the Lighthouse
Oh, okay.
program.
Oh, okay, they must have removed it, so I'm.
Yeah,
We've removed it,
yeah.
it's not there, it should not be
Because
here
right now it shows art, speeds, and needs, okay.
Right.
And then 10, what was 10D? 9D, right?
9D, there's an amendment, which we will
Oh, okay.
discuss as it comes along. So I need a motion to approve the amended agenda. Moved by Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Powell. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay. Before public comment, I am going to read a statement.
By whom?
It is from the commission. It's a clarification statement.
From us?
From us to a public comment that has been made at a couple of meetings regarding the land bank. It's a response to a question of how do we have the authority to create a land bank. So I'm going to read the response, and anybody who wants it in writing, I've got copies. Okay? So here is the response. Under the Land Bank Fast Track Act 2003, PA 258, MCL 124.751 to 124.774 Land Bank Act, the Oakland County Treasurer's Office, with the approval of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners and the concurrence of the Oakland County Executive, excuse me, established a separate legal entity and public body within Oakland County, Michigan, which will exercise the powers, duties, functions, and responsibilities of an authority under the Land Bank Act. On June 23, 2022, the Oakland County Board of Commissioners approved the intergovernmental agreement between the State Land Bank Authority and the Oakland County Treasurer's Office to establish the Oakland County Land Bank Authority. Okay. Next up, we have public comment. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to address us at this time? I see no one. I will close public comment, and we will move on to communications. I need a motion to receive and file communications. Commissioner Moss, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. Is there any discussion?
It's about time.
If not, then let's go ahead and prompt the vote. On communications.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Next up, we have item 8, Legislative and Affairs, excuse me, Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee recommendations. Item A, Clerk Register of Deeds grant application with the Michigan Department of State Bureau of Elections for the 2022 Election Security Grant. I need a motion. Commissioner Kowal, supported by Commissioner Cavell.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning. Thanks for putting us first. We appreciate that. As we've got an election coming up and we're busy. But anyway, it's pretty straightforward as far as this grant being available to us from the Secretary of State's office. And so it allows us to purchase. So for our combined AV counting board, absentee voter counting board, one of the things that we purchased initially were high-speed, I call them high-speed envelope openers. So to open the envelope, and it's a delicate setting, I'm not going to get into details, but, you know, it goes right, instead of having one person individually open each envelope, and they have to make sure that they're not cutting the ballot when it's being opened, so all that sort of stuff. So this money will allow us to buy some new ones. We bought 2 different brands, and there's definitely a difference, like there is in everything in life. And there's other things that we'd like to use the money for, but it's a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to make sure that our AV counting board and everything that we do surrounding our elections and the roles that we play are top-notch.
And I mean, there's no grant match, there's no future obligation, it's essentially free money. And I just want you all to know too that a lot of what's covered in this grant, we were so progressive, we had already implemented a lot of it in advance of 2020. So alarm systems for our tabulation room, separate closed circuit cameras to monitor that room, all of that was done using federal money from CARES Act to COVID money in advance of 2020. So we're ahead of the curve. I mean, they're just coming around to other counties saying, hey, there's this money available if you want to do this. A lot of it we've already done.
Excellent. Commissioner Powell.
I just wanted to make a comment and say whatever this department needs in regards to AV assistance, we should grant it. We do know that our clerk's office does a great job. Our elections office does a great job with handling our elections. And they do tremendous, great work with partnering with the city of Pontiac, and y'all have did a marvelous job, so I will be a yes vote on this grant acceptance. So thank you for your efforts in that.
I wanted to add, so I think the last time I was here, I was talking about that a community had reached out to us, and I think Commissioner Moss had wanted to know what that community was. Do you remember? So, and I wouldn't tell you because it wasn't official yet. So we actually have added 3 since then, but at that point, that was West Bloomfield. We also added Wixom, the city of Wixom, and also Orion Township. So we're now the nifty 19, I like to say, so.
And officially,
you have 19 communities
Yes.
that you're counting the AV ballots.
Yes, and they range,
excellent.
obviously, in size, to small, medium, large, all of them, blue, red, purple, everything, It's just, and they all, they contract with us everybody has their own different reasons as to why it's better for them or it's a better, fit for them for us to do it. For some of them, it allows them to focus more on election day with precincts and same-day voter registration. That's very time-consuming for our local clerks to be able to take the time to do that and have the staff for all that. So whatever the reason, we're here, and the fact that we've been able to accommodate, because obviously it requires more people for us to hire. It requires more space and equipment. So far, we've been able to juggle and manage everybody that's asked at this point now. So,
and we're the largest board in the state. We count more ballots in this board than any other jurisdiction in the state. And we finish earlier than any other jurisdiction in the state.
That's the big key, and that's also a reason why, they've seen the results, that our results are posted like at 8:02 p.m. And that's great, not just for the local clerk that, they feel good about that, for residents who want to know, right? Where we're getting all of those. I mean, I used to have to wait till 3 o'clock in the morning for my results. At that point, you kind of don't even care. You just want to go to sleep. But voters want to know. They took the time out to cast their ballot. They want to know how that worked. So, there's just so many benefits to it, and it's such a wonderful collaboration that I'm so proud that, we can participate in and like I said, support the clerks and work with them who want that with us. So this grant will allow us to, like I said, keep everything, up to the par that we like it to be at, and so asking for your support.
Thank you. Commissioner Kowal.
Which one do I go to? Okay.
In stereo. use
Thank you,
both.
Madam Chair. Good job, you guys. And I saw too that municipalities could get up to $1,500 per precinct. Has this grant opportunity closed now, or is it still open?
Still open.
Do they know about it?
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll remind mine too, just to make
Definitely.
sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments? Let's go ahead and prompt the vote. Motion carries.
Thank you so
Thanks very
much.
much. Good luck on Tuesday.
Thank you. You as well.
Thanks for all you do. There's a few of us in this room that have contested primaries on Tuesday, so.
We'll get you the results as quick as we can.
districts first.
Only the winning ones.
Okay, next up, we move on to Public Health and Safety Committee recommendations. The first is item 9A, Sheriff's Office grant application with the Michigan State Police for the FY 2023 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program. I need a motion. Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. It's a darn good thing they put signs in front of you guys. Good morning.
Good morning. Gaya Pierce, Sheriff Fiscal Officer. So this is our annual application for Byrne grant funding through the state of Michigan for our Narcotics Enforcement Team program. We're applying for $521,648 to continue our existing program. We don't anticipate getting that much. We don't normally, but we still apply for the whole program. What we've asked for is to continue 2 full-time sergeants and 1 PTNE office support clerk in the sheriff's office, and then 1 full-time assistant prosecutor senior in the prosecuting attorney's office.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Gaya on this item? Okay, go ahead and prompt the vote then.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Next, we have item 9B, approving the use of non-departmental general fund for the Woodward Dream Cruise special event signage by the Road Commission for Oakland County.
Move it.
Commissioner Moss, supported by Commissioner Kowal. Okay.
Okay, so this is our annual request. The sheriff's office has to obtain a traffic control order to, mark the street changes for the Woodward Dream Cruise. But as required by law, the road commission is the one that has to put the signs out. So we get a quote from them each year, and this year it's a not to exceed amount of $10,573.60. Historically, I know Commissioner Cavella asked a question yesterday in Public Health and Safety about the amount or the overhead amount they have in there. Historically, we haven't gone up to the not to exceed amount. It's usually less, but obviously depending on their staffing and overtime and whatever else, they have to put in a contingency amount. So we don't anticipate it being that high, but that's the quote they gave us this year. So.
Okay. Commissioner Moss.
Someone who lives 3.5 blocks from Woodward Avenue. It's good to see the control that is. I've watched this event from its first year, and so it's like Detroit's Mardi Gras. So nice job.
People seem to either love it or hate it if you live nearby, so.
I know.
So,
You walk to it, so
Yeah, it's
not
not
there.
Don't try to leave your
Remember
driveway,
the
right?
blackout during the
I've never gone.
Oh, yeah.
03, I think. Jeez.
Never gone to the Woodward Dream Cruise. All that pollution.
Oh,
It scares me, all those old cars and the gas.
Like mine?
but they're so cool.
I know they are. I know. But I also told you I'm not a crowd person. Okay, so anybody else have any comments or questions on
I
this?
like my old car. It wasn't old when I first
I like your old car too. It's a nice car.
What is that, your LeBaron?
All right, if there's no other comments, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
94.
Wow.
When I first drove it, everyone laughed at me because it wasn't old. And now they're like, wow, that's cool.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, great. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next up, we have item 9C, Health and Human Services Neighborhood and Housing Development Grant Application with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the program year 2022 Annual Action Plan. I have a motion by Commissioner Cavell, supported by Commissioner Powell. I see Shane Byes up on the Zoom screen, so good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, what you have before you is a miscellaneous resolution allowing us to officially apply for our regular annual funding from HUD. That includes Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership Grant, and Emergency Solutions Grant funding. This is the same funding that for CDBG that we help use to support our housing counseling unit, as well as various projects that we help allocate to communities. Communities will individually decide how they're going to spend that CDBG funding. We help make sure that it is an allowable activity within HUD rules and the law, and they use it for such things as infrastructure improvement, supporting some public services within the community. For example, some elect to support Meals on Wheels for seniors or lawn services for seniors. And then our home program, we use that to support our home improvement program, the home grant funding. And we have shifted this year in our annual action plan, that's part of your attachments, that we submit that annual action plan to HUD with our application for funding, and they double check and they will review that to make sure everything's allowable in it. But one notable change is that due to some other funding sources through the Housing Trust Fund and some other sources for that go to support rental development, we've shifted a little bit money back to the home improvement program while maintaining just enough to meet our voluntary compliance agreement minimum allocations that we have to maintain to meet that. We're in a voluntary compliance agreement still with the fair housing side of HUD. And so we are maintaining some of that rental development for our home allocation, just not as much as we did last year, because we got some additional non-HUD funding to support that kind of work within Oakland County communities. And then finally, the Emergency Solution Grant, no major changes with those activities. Those still go to support shelter operations, as well as some homeless prevention, rapid rehousing services that some of those same nonprofit agencies use to assist people experiencing homelessness. So as a reminder, this is just an application. It goes to HUD. We should get official agreements back for us to accept the funding, usually anywhere from September or October, November, depending upon how quickly HUD moves with the review. And that's where I'll pause for any questions.
Okay, Commissioner Long, you had a question.
Yes, thanks, Jane. On the local municipalities for the CDBG, is there a formula that calculates the amount they get? I forget.
Yep, there is a formula. We use some data. I'm trying to think of the words. Some data sets that HUD has for the number of low moderate households within certain communities, census numbers for the population of those communities, and that ratio is used to kind of calculate the amount of funding that each one gets. And there's some minor variations. For example, we always are sure to give every community, no matter what their size, a minimum of $7,000 because you can't do much if it's much less than that. So even though the formula for some of the moderate size to bigger communities translates real well, we do have kind of a basement level where we don't give any community, even if the smallest ones, anything less than $7,000 because it wouldn't really be worth it if we gave them less than that.
All right, thank you. And then would it be a huge job just when this is all done to give us a printout of what each community got? Is there a way to do that?
There is. I can give you more of a summary, but if you're interested in any community in particular,
okay,
look at the annual action plan draft. I know it's a large document, but a large component of that document is about 150 pages worth, and I think they're alphabetized within cities, villages, and townships. Okay. That actually lists what the communities are right now preliminary wanting to do with their money. So not just the dollar amount, but it also lists what activities the community wants to do with that money. And we can share a more summarized version that just lists the dollar amounts by community, if that would be helpful.
Yes, it would be. Thank you, though. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you. And I think you just answered my question because you say that what the communities want to do. So they get to have input into this action plan then. And, it's not just the county put something together, but the individual communities also contribute to this. Am I right in that?
Yeah, so when we're looking at just the money that is getting allocated to the communities, really our input kind of, I don't want to say ends, we might suggest something if they ask us for suggestions, but really it's what that local authority, city council, township oversight board, whatever their mechanism is for approval, it's that entity that approves those activities. We're simply somebody that says, yes, you're allowed to do that with that CDBG funding, that kind of thing. For the overall action plan, we reach out via surveys. We have conversations with stakeholders, various nonprofits we work with, the cities, villages, and townships, and those municipalities. We reach out to them too and ask for some feedback. Say, hey, this is what else we're thinking about doing with the rest of the funding. What are your thoughts? Some give us feedback, some don't. That's kind of how it goes sometimes. But yeah, we're constantly eliciting feedback with the entirety of our funding that we submit to HUD within our annual action plan.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else have any questions? Seeing no one, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Thanks very much.
Appreciate it.
Next up, we have item 9D, appropriating American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds to address safety concerns in the school district of the city of Pontiac. I need a motion. Commissioner McGilvery, supported by Commissioner Powell. And I believe there's an amendment to this.
Yes, can we have Gail come up?
Sure.
Just to talk about this as well?
Yep.
Thank you. So just to let my colleagues know, Pontiac has had the request came for another school resource officer to assist with basically heightened and crime and violence issues, possibly in our youth department. This request came, with our youth in the city. This request came from our superintendent, Kelly Williams, our president of the school board, which is Gil Garrett, and he's actually a sheriff officer, an Oakland County sheriff himself. And then also our captain, Captain Ewing, for our actual police, the sheriff for the Pontiac station. So this request came, and this is something that I had in place 3 years ago. As you all know, I brought this to the attention 3 years ago in regards to some issues we were having at the high school. Fast forward, they did use some of those funds from 3 years ago, and now the school district has requested it. And then also, I will let you all know that Commissioner Genjo brought up for us to have an ad hoc to look at this, be it for just our schools countywide, at getting resource officers and what that looked like moving forward. So we're going to have an ad hoc committee to study this moving forward, but this is the request that came in, and we do all know that there are safety concerns everywhere around us, especially since COVID and post-COVID. So I just ask for y'all support in keeping my youth safe in this city. So thank you.
Okay, do you want to speak to the amendment?
Oh, the amendment, we had to make a couple changes. Commissioner Cavell brought up the title concern, so we changed the title concern, and then we are still in discussion in regards to how much this can cost. So again, we added that in there to not exceed up to 200,000, and Gail can add, specifically into what all this cost is associated with. And that was really it. Those were the two things we needed to add to the amendment.
Thank you.
So just for clarification, because we're not actually doing a contract amendment with the city of Pontiac, it will be it's ARPA dollars, so it's a county position. So that patrol investigator title, that's associated with a contractual position. That's why we had to change it. So we use patrol investigator for, that's the general category for either a school resource officer or a detective when we do in the law enforcement standard agreements. This one, we're actually just it's going to be a Deputy 2 position acting as a school resource officer, so we changed the title just to make it less confusing and show the intent of what this is supposed to be. The money that was set aside 3 years ago, that was actually on an overtime basis because it was kind of an emergency situation. So we were putting people in the schools on overtime. Unfortunately, COVID hit, so all of that money that was appropriated wasn't used because the schools closed. And so we had started doing that, and then that wasn't completed. So this request then creates a position for a year, and then we'll sunset it next August. So it'll be from August to August, and then it also it requires a car. So we have to get a car, and then the associated equipment, body-worn camera, and things that go along with it. So that's the not-to-exceed amount of $200,000. I've worked with Fiscal Services, and they're going to do a budget amendment in the next quarterly forecast to do the exact budget.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Moss?
What was the original title that you didn't like?
Patrol investigator. So it's not that we don't like it, but that's our contractual title. That kind of is the catch-all for detective and school resource officer. But this was specifically, so I think it was a little bit misleading where it said patrol investigator when really we wanted to be a school resource officer.
Okay,
So
thank
that's
you.
it. Just clarity.
Commissioner Kowal, followed by Commissioner Long.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for adding a dollar amount in there. That was a big question I had in my mind, so glad you covered that. So I'll be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Long.
Yes, I'm glad also that there's going to be a study group, because I think all the schools in Oakland County, unfortunately, need a school resource officer. So I'm glad. I think we should make sure all the schools do have it. So.
Commissioner Powell.
I also want to put on my colleagues' radar that Prosecutor McDonald is also starting a task force to look at the, I think, gun violence and just violence in general in Oakland County as a whole. So I think that is a great time for us to do our ad hoc committee and get data so we can look at this holistically for every school and just community in general. So I just want to let you all know that as well.
Anybody else? Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, just two things. I'm going to vote for this out of support of Pontiac. Part of the reason that this is important for Pontiac to be able to be getting ARPA money is because while we've given grants out to mental health or community groups or nonprofits or after-school programming, we haven't done anything exclusively for Pontiac, which is a high-need community that has plenty of ARPA money that we can leverage to truly transform it. And that would be a great statement of purpose from the county executive that we have yet to see. So one, happy to support this as a first step towards that end. And the second thing, overall though, more people with guns in schools do not make schools safer. We saw that with Uvalde. This is not the right path to go on, structurally speaking, but happy to support it out of the sake of Pontiac.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Okay, I have some comments. I'm really happy to hear we're going to have an ad hoc committee to really address this in more detail and depth, because my community has had school resource officers for a number of years. When I was on city council, we actually put 2 local police in as resource officers. And so there's been a lot of discussion about how you manage this and who they are and how they get trained and all of that. And there are some concerns that came about. For example, I was listening to the meeting yesterday, and I heard Commissioner Lube say that these resource officers are really social workers with some guns, right? The question is the social worker training piece of it. if we're going to put these officers into these schools, how are we training them? We've talked about implicit bias, right, in police forces all over the country. So in the schools in particular, these kids are vulnerable at all levels. And so the officers that are in there, are they always men? Are they always, do we consider gender? Do we consider ethnicity and so on in our staffing, as well as the training for what this person will do? What is the protocol also for these officers? And I want to use Oxford as an example, not as a bad thing necessarily, but when the shooting happened, the resource officer was in a different school, which is not a surprise because they cover more schools, right? So in that moment, okay. But earlier in the day, they had the parents into the school, they had the kid in there, they had his backpack, all of that was in a room with some school officials, and yet no one asked the resource officer to be in that meeting. And from that day, I've had that question. So if we're going to put these officers in the schools, maybe that's part of it. If you have a troubled student that's being called in to be, dealt with on a given day, does the school have to do something specific regarding, how are we going to mesh with the school leadership? These are all questions that I have. I'm going to support this, but I think we have a lot of work to do if we're going to suggest that we put resource officers all across Oakland County and pay for them, So let me see if I have any other questions. The issue about gender, someone in my community brought that up, because if you have, a big burly police officer and you've got a young woman with an issue, she may not want to talk to that person. So having some flexibility in the types of folks that are the resource officers, or having other resources available as issues arise, I think that's something that needs to be considered. So I'm glad we're going to have an ad hoc committee to talk about it. Anybody else? Commissioner McGilvery, followed by Commissioner Powell.
Just a comment. I think it's needed throughout Oakland County, and I'm glad to see the ad hoc committee. My one concern is most communities, cities, and villages are funded out of their own budget, not through the county. So if we do this, we need to develop some kind of a grant plan or a matching plan to be able to do that, because it's great that Pontiac gets them and they need them. I understand that. But then you take the city of Hazel Park, for example. They need it just as much, but yet they don't have the budget to be able to do it. And so we need to come up with some kind of a grant program to be able to help them.
All right. And in my community, the police department pays for it.
Right.
So,
Out of city budget.
they're all, you're right. That should be an element of discussion for sure. Commissioner Powell.
I'm happy all the concerns is being raised and how y'all feel about things, but data, at the end of the day, the data does not match as far as what's going on in my community and what's going on in the county, period. I challenge that. So at this point, the only reason why they came to the county to ask is because the funding was needed. They need the assistance, even though we know they got ARPA funding, we know they got all this other stuff, additional funding to help support, they needed the funding. And I think that because of past, we already know Pontiac has always lacked the support and resources from the county. So it's really not, it's a moot point when it comes to looking at in that perspective. I am happy that the ad hoc committee is being formed, and I will say this just from my history of being in my schools, watching resource officers, actually going to a school and being in the school when the resource officers was there when I was in high school. They are, and depending on case by case, if a female officer was needed, that communication will happen with the resource officer to accommodate that situation. So I know that those things do happen to help and accommodate whatever situation case by case, because I've seen this. I've seen it. So all that resource training that you all are concerned about, I know a lot of the stuff do come case by case, depending on the situation, but extensive training, and you're right, certain officers can't be in school. Certain officers are not going to deal with youth in certain ways. So I do commend, even when we were Pontiac Police Department prior to sheriff, I think that there's a strong vetting to make sure that we have sound resource officers that is going to focus and help the youth the way that the youth need to be helped. So I just wanted to put that out there, but again, we know that this is data-driven. This is why the sense of urgency is there. And, that's all I need to say, because I'm getting kind of...
I have one other question about the funding. So we're going to do it through ARPA funding this year.
Yes.
But if we decide this is something we want going forward, where are we going to find the money for that? Maybe we don't have an answer today. We have a year to figure it out, okay? But as we move forward thinking we want to do more of this, we won't have ARPA funds forever. Now, listening to the meeting yesterday, that question was asked of the folks who determined whether it was legitimate ARPA expense, and it was determined that yes, it was. It does fit into the
Yes.
ARPA categorization, so I don't have any problem with that. What I want us thinking about is, okay, it's a one-year program, going to sunset next August. We probably still will have the need next August, so how are we going to go forward? Let's think about that over the next.
Well, I will
months.
say this, in my original one 3 years ago, it did require a match. In the resolution, there was a match because, as we know, as county, especially because at that time I was looking for it to come out of our board as projects. Remember, our board special projects. And with that, it did request a match. So moving forward, I am encouraging of the match. It's just that it worked out that we can pull this from ARPA. But moving forward, I think that would be because you should have stake in it from the community as well. With the county, doing a match. So I think that is a good, fair ask of the communities participating.
Commissioner Cavell for one more time.
Yeah. I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Powell said about data, that when we're thinking about things, especially talking about different communities that we all represent, from, I think, our shared perspective, we all agree that it's less about the, what am I trying to say? Looking more to percentage of need or the root cause of need than what we want or what we think could also be beneficial to our own separate communities. AKA, when Pontiac comes forward with a bunch of requests for ARPA, they might be big dollar amounts to do a lot of huge structural things, but that's because Pontiac has an 85% functional behind grade average illiteracy rate. That's because Pontiac has more than double the unemployment rate of all of our communities. That's because Pontiac has a dead downtown that is not able to be thriving because of its DDA, because of its ineffective funding measures, right? There's all these things that are stacking up. So when we see Pontiac things or when we're working on Pontiac things, just want to reiterate that it's based on need, not based on what we want for our own communities, just as a primer.
We can do both.
Right. Thank you, Gwen.
Okay. Anybody else?
So just one quick comment, if I
Okay.
may. So our most recent, if you recall, we just approved, or you just approved another school resource officer for Independence Township. And she's a female and has a therapy dog. So there's kind of a double whammy. I don't have the percentages of all of our school resource officers, but that's the most recent one, so.
Good. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. If there's no other discussion, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
So we have to
Oh, we have to
move-
vote on the amendment
we have to move
first.
the amendment.
We have to move the amendment. Commissioner Powell makes the motion, Commissioner Cavell supports. So let's prompt the vote on the amendment.
We have 7 yeas, 0 nays on the amendment.
Okay, moving on to the main motion. Did we have a motion already?
We have a motion
Okay.
as amended.
Okay. So you can go ahead and prompt the vote on that.
You have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along. We're moving on to item 10, our department recommendations. First up is item 10A, the appointment of the County Equalization Director. Motion by Commissioner Moss, supported by Commissioner Kowal. We have April Lynch.
I'm here to introduce Michael Lohmeyer. I'm actually here for moral support, but Kyle Jen, who is here on Zoom, I think wants to do the formal introduction, but I didn't want him hanging out here by himself.
We don't bite.
I know, right? So Kyle, you're up, buddy.
Welcome.
Who's Kyle?
I know, right?
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good morning. I apologize. I'm not there in person. I'm on a family vacation this week, but we did want to get this appointment in front of you as soon as possible. Just as background here in terms of the process, the County Equalization Officer position, which manages our County Equalization Division and all the work they do in terms of assessing for local communities and the countywide equalization function, is a county merit position. We did go through a extensive and open hiring and interview process, and Michael was selected as the most qualified candidate. However, under state statute, it is the responsibility of the board to formally appoint the position of County Equalization Director and all the responsibilities that go with that under state law. So you have the application materials for Michael in front of you. They're frankly hard to summarize in a succinct manner just because his experience is so wide-ranging. But he brings over 30 years of experience doing appraising and assessing work in the county, including having served as the assessor for Auburn Hills and most recently Novi. He's been deeply involved in a number of local, state, and national associations that are involved in the appraising and assessing fields. And I think the thing that's most exciting to me and the rest of the team, he's got extensive experience doing training and instructing in various forums, including actually doing training on behalf of the State Tax Commission and the Tax Tribunal. So he brings a wide-ranging base, and we're excited that he's going to be able to expand some of the educational and training opportunities for the staff in the division as we look to build on the solid foundation that's there and the solid team that's there, and push Oakland County equalization even further up the charts, in terms of being a leader in the state. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure that Michael would be happy to answer any questions you might have as well.
Thank you, Mr. Jen. Welcome, Mr. Lohmeyer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I know you because you've been the assessor in my community, so I will open it up to you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll open it up to the commission to ask you any questions they might have.
Well, hopefully you can hear me. I want to say first, thank you for having me, and let you know this is a tremendous honor to even be selected to be the Equalization Director for Oakland County. I have a tremendous amount of respect for this administration, a tremendous amount of respect for the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. But I also have it's also a great honor and respect and appreciation that I have for the Oakland County Equalization team, the leadership team to be a part of, and also the staff to be a team member of. I've grown to not only have a lot of respect for, but appreciation for that I've worked with for many years, that I've served with on various boards and committees, but also as the assessor for Auburn Hills and Novi. I've learned to appreciate them. I've worked with them side by side through troubles and tribulations where they've helped me out over the years. So to be a part of that team is a huge honor, and one that I don't take lightly. And I can promise you, and I give you my sincere pledge to my dedication and commitment to give 110% going forward, to not only to you, this board, but to my staff, to do the very best, and to our residents and business owners to do my very best in this position. I will give for this, as I have in my past professional career. That means not only to my job, but also any mentoring I can give to my staff and the leadership. Also for communication to our residents and business owners. As you know, in Novi, we went above and beyond the job description. We did a lot of public relations efforts through news, public relations, video, brochures, a lot of communications through the Michigan Realtor Associations, through public relations efforts through Chamber of Commerce, working with the Michigan Municipal League, Michigan Townships Associations, just a tremendous amount of outreach, public outreach, and working with the public to let them know what was available to them. We even, as Commissioner Cowell will know, we did a lot of stuff through Independence Township to help people understand how to appeal their taxes. So we want fair and just property taxation, not only as an assessor, but as a member, as a taxpayer myself. So that's kind of strange for a lot of assessors to do, but we want to see it from both sides to make sure everybody's represented. And I make that commitment to you as a board that I'll continue to do that effort, but as a team with the team that I respect so much. And I'm very honored to have two of our leaders here with me today. Tracy Jones, who celebrates her 25th year now, as of last week with Oakland County Equalization. And Terry Schultz, who's also been with the county for over 15 years. So I'm very honored that their longevity speaks a great deal about their commitment to our residents and owners as well. And I am available to answer your questions today or at any point, because my door is always open to you.
Thank you very much, and welcome aboard. Anybody have any questions or things they want to add here? Well, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Welcome to the team.
I'll do my best.
All right. Next up, we have item 10B, creating the Oakland County Survivor to Thriver program. I need a motion. Commissioner Cowell, supported by Commissioner Powell. Is there somebody here to speak to this one? It's a resolution introduced by Commissioner Spiz.
I can talk about it a little bit if it wants.
Hi, Commissioner. This is Connie Strogi. Commissioner Jackson will be covering for Commissioner Spiz today.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. I'm sorry I can't be shown on camera right now, but I'm just grateful and glad that you can hear me. I am going to present this resolution. Commissioner Spiz was going to today, but he got tied up in something else. And so I'm very pleased to see that several of the human trafficking task force representatives are on this committee. Commissioner Powell, Commissioner Cowell, and Commissioner Markham. You're all here today, and so hopefully you're familiar with this. I'm sure that you are. The creation of the Oakland County Survivor to Thriver program is something very proudly put forth through our human trafficking task force, based upon a suggestion idea of one of our members, Allison Mercer, who works at Common Ground. She let us know that in treating human trafficking survivors on the continuum of services, there was something missing as far as just enhancing their lives, because a lot of survivors miss out on milestones and are ensnared in the horrible plague of human trafficking, and they miss even out on things like learning to tell time. A survivor told me that she was trapped in this life and she wasn't even taught to tell time. And so something as simple as that in regards to what other young people may experience through life, going to the library, going to Cedar Point, going to the Detroit Zoo, just things that enhance their lifestyle. And so now as some of these trafficking survivors have come of age and are parents themselves, they haven't had those experiences, or even the ability to even know to pass on those experiences to their children. So this program was set up as something to help enhance their lives after being rescued from this horrific crime. So basically, the Human Trafficking Task Force has teamed up in Oakland County, have teamed up with Vista Maria Service Agency and MAP, the Michigan Abolitionist Project, whose director, who's soon to be retiring, Kathy Maitland, is a member of our task force. And they're going to help administrate a program that will obtain donations to help survivors just have experiences, to help them thrive and have a healthy life after being victims of this horrific crime. So we're here today presenting this resolution, and I hope that you guys had a chance to read through it, and asking for up to $10,900 from the special I don't know if I have the title right, Commissioner Markham, help me out. The special...
the Board of Commissioners Special Projects Fund.
Okay, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. To help institute this program, and it's going to begin as a pilot program over the next year, and it's going to have oversight and reports given back to us as a board through Vista Maria and MEP. So I want to just present that today for your favorable vote.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody have anything they want to ask or add to the conversation? Commissioner Kowal.
Yes, I think this will be a really great program. When I was on the Michigan Commission on Human Trafficking, we did a lot of traveling to places around the state that offered services to people, and it's really mind-boggling how people are just stuck in some kind of time warp to when they maybe first got involved, and the things that they don't know how to do is just absolutely amazing. So if we really truly want to get these people back to some kind of a normal life, I do think it's essential that we help them to have normal life experiences. So I'm looking forward to this program working out quite well. And Vista Maria is a very good, and of course MAP, two very good organizations. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Yeah, I want to just double up on what Commissioner Kowal has said. The Human Trafficking Task Force, we've heard a lot of testimony from different victims and also organizations that support the survivors. And the thing I like about this is it has a very positive spin to it. We want to help these folks learn that their lives can be better by just helping them have some experiences like going to the zoo. Can you imagine if nobody ever took you to the zoo? Didn't even know that you had that option, just little things like that. So that's what I like. And this will be administered by leadership in the business who work with these people all the time and know what their needs are. So I'm very happy for us to support this activity. So you want to go ahead and prompt the vote?
Yeah, we'll take you.
Come on, Chucky, let's go to the zoo.
Okay, motion carries. Thanks very much for stopping by today, Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, and thank you all for your vote. Take care.
Okay. All right, next up, these are all actually now Board of Commissioners special projects, the next couple of items. Item 10C is sponsorship of the 2022 Arts Beats and Eats Festival in partnership with the City of Royal Oak. Motion by Commissioner Moss, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. I would have thought. Commissioner McGilvery, you want to talk about this?
Since I represent a small portion of Royal Oak.
Sure.
As most of you probably know, the Arts, Beats, and Eats Festival is a very large festival over Labor Day weekend. And this is one way we started helping them out a couple of years ago, I believe, and it's a great program, so I think that this is well worth it.
I was caught up on a phone call.
Yeah, Commissioner Woodward, do you care to add anything to this conversation?
Would you like me to withdraw my motion and let you make it?
No.
All right.
No. But no,
Well, that
I
was
appreciate
very
that.
gallant of you, Commissioner Moss.
Thank you. No, if I may, Madam Chair, and I mean, to
Please
echo
do.
Commissioner McGilvery's comments, this event has grown to be arguably one of the largest Midwest festival events in the entire country. In the Midwest in the country, and we're going into the 25th year. This was an idea that started an inception with a vision of the late Brooks Patterson to create these quality of life events. The economic impact and supports of arts and culture is really off the charts. When you look at like 600 local artists, that perform music. I think over 50 local restaurants, about 80% of them are Oakland County restaurants that actually participate in this. Over 100 artists. This is a multi-million-dollar event that brings in hundreds of thousands of people, upwards of 400,000 people a day, and this is like really I would say the send-off summer event. In addition to it being a great festival for families to come, and there's something for everybody, and there's a lot of intentionality about making certain that to bring in the events that appeals to all the folks of Oakland County as well as the broader region. The publicity that Oakland County gets on a national level is enormous, and the charitable giving. I was actually at the roster of the national bands that were announced yesterday. And but also learned there that over the 25 years, $6.5 million raised for charity, and this is over the last 24 years, and so and it builds every single year. So it's a truly a great event. In terms of our support and sponsorship, well, before the pandemic, there was a partnership between the board and the executive office, and I'm in conversation with Sean Carlson. This brings us back to that level, that shared level support. And so, appreciate your support, and we'll look about baking and figuring out how we go forward. But we're not drawing from ARPA dollars. We're not drawing. This is us moving forward. We did support this greater level to get through. Kind of come off the pandemic, and here we are today to continue to support this event and encourage. To promote it and take part on Labor Day weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward. Commissioner, anybody have anything they want to add or raise a question about? I just want to speak on the topic of special projects just a little bit. We set aside in this budget $1 million for commissioner special projects, and each commissioner has the ability to bring them forward to the board through the various committees and to the board and get support. And we've seen the bocce tournament, and we've seen the kite fest, and there's lots of other commissioner projects all over the county, and it allows each of us to put our little spin on our community and bring support for what's unique about our communities. This one's a little bit bigger because it's grown way bigger, but it fits right into that special projects category, and the fact that it's got matching funds from lots of other organizations and so on is something we always look for. So anyway, I'm very much in support of it. Always like a decent party, so. 50 acts, you said, right? Musical acts?
No. There's over 600 musicians.
Oh, 600 musicians.
There's 6 stages, I believe. All different types of artists that come in. I'll make sure that everyone, here has information, spread the news. And since, we're truly coming off this pandemic, I'm going to personally invite my colleagues. There will be a pre-opening gathering on me.
That would be very nice. Okay. All right. If there's no other comments, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You got 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent. Okay. Motion carries. Last item under department recommendations is item 10E, Board of Commissioners sponsorship of the 2022 Hazel Park Art Fair. I need a motion. Commissioner Cavell, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. Who wants to tell us a little bit about this?
Me and Gary flipped a coin, and he said he won, so I got to talk about it. No,
Okay.
The Hazel Park Art Fair is awesome. If you see, this is its 10th year, and we're seeking $6,000 from the Special Projects Fund. And we happen to have the president of the Hazel Park Arts Council on the call with us. Amy, would you mind showing yourself? There she is. Wow.
Hello, Ms. Aubrey.
Good morning. I'm not quite the president. I'm actually the treasurer of the Hazel Park Arts Council, as well as the chair of the planning committee for the Hazel Park Art Fair. This is something I like to do in my free time. I've been planning the fair for the last 5 years. So the Hazel Park Arts Council is a nonprofit located in Hazel Park. We are all volunteer-based, and this is our largest fundraiser of the year. And if it wasn't for sponsorships, we would not be able to put on an affordable event for artists, musicians. We do our best to make sure everybody's compensated fairly and keep all the costs low for artists. Our goal is to make sure that art is accessible to all. That is our driving force. So we have a fair that's got, we like to say, you know, you can attend this event and everybody can find something from $5 to $5,000. So it's available to all economic classes, as well as having our vendor fees low because they're subsidized by our sponsors. Artists who are emerging artists are able to get into the field and try out, see if this is a way to earn a living for them at fairly low risk. We also offer mentorship opportunities, and all of the funding that we raise from this event is reinvested back into the community because we have no overhead. Or, well, we have minimal overhead.
Great. I like seeing art in all the little communities and, you know, pockets of Oakland County. That's great. Anybody have any questions or comments? Commissioner
Just a
McGilvery.
comment. I have attended the Hazel Park Art Fair, and it's a great event, and I would be more than happy to support this.
Okay. All right. If there are no other comments, let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay, excellent. Motion carries.
Thank
So
you.
That finishes all of the department recommendations, and we will be moving on to item number 11, our budget hearing from the Office of the County Executive. I guess, is this a receive and file? Is that what this is?
Really, we're just here to.
Good morning.
So you can receive the file.
Okay.
Who giving a presentation? Kyle giving a presentation?
Kyle's given the presentation.
Vacation.
Man, I hope you're
Good
not
morning,
anywhere
everyone.
cool,
Can you hear me?
Kyle.
I just can't get away.
How dedicated.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yes, you're good, Kyle.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good morning. This is kind of, you know, the traditional kickoff of the budget process in terms of your part of the process. I don't want to take up a lot of time this morning since obviously you heard from Executive Coulter and me last week in terms of our overview of the board, overview of the budget recommendation. We do want to take a few minutes and just make sure that you have all the tools you need and understand where those tools are as you undertake the hearings with each of the departments next month in terms of the proposed budget. So I'm going to walk through a fairly short PowerPoint here. And
See that you are.
let's see.
I can't see that.
Yeah.
All right, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, it's on the.
here.
Yeah.
On your We have it in our
This is a
packet.
slide that you saw last week and that you've seen in each of our budget presentations for the last few years, but it's an important one in terms of the things that guide our construction of the budget and working with you to adopt a balanced budget each year. In terms of the goals of this administration, that starts, of course, with delivering a balanced budget each year, which we have done this year. And as we talked about last week, we've built this budget to make sure, that we're making prudent assumptions and that we're prepared to respond to anything that might change in the economy over the coming months and years. A top focus has been ending the practice of assuming that we're going to use fund balance to pay for ongoing operational expenses. This budget achieves that goal. Third, we want to continue to ensure that we have a competitive and efficient county workforce. With your help, we adopted the compensation plan to make our pay levels more competitive with other employers in the area. This budget continues that goal by including a 5% general salary increase to help our employees with the increased costs they face due to higher inflation right now, and ensure that we're as competitive as possible with other local governments and private employers that we're in competition for employees with. We want to invest in initiatives that move our county forward, doing that in a fiscally responsible manner. We've worked with all of you to ensure that we're spending our federal COVID funds in an effective manner on one-time projects that have long-term benefit, but don't increase our ongoing budget. We've talked about the targeted general fund investments included in this budget recommendation to help improve the lives of our county residents. The fifth item here is something we've made a lot of progress on over the last 12 months in terms of measuring our performance and trying to improve that performance in terms of how we deliver services across the county. We've established a strategic framework with 7 goals. We've established and published on our public dashboard the community level performance indicators that go with each of those goals, and then you'll be hearing from each of the county executive departments in their budget hearings about the key performance indicators they're establishing for their specific services. And then lastly, all of this, has behind it ensuring that we continue to earn that AAA bond rating and keep our borrowing costs as low as possible. So a quick refresher here on the various types of funds you're going to see in the budget document. Obviously, we focus a lot of our attention on the general fund, which is our largest fund and supported by our property taxes, our charges for services, and the revenue that we receive from the state. This is where we have the highest level of discretion and want to ensure that we're in balance, both this year and for the long term. We also have special revenue funds, which are basically grant funds, certainly lower level of discretion there, as funds have to be used for a specific purpose from the federal or state government or other source. And then we do have sizable proprietary funds. Those are funds that operate like a business by charging costs to customers. Those funds can be split into 2 categories. First of all, enterprise funds. That's where the primary customer base is outside county government. And some key examples there are the Parks and Recreation Fund, all the funds that the Water Resource Commissioner manages for providing water and sewer and other services to local units within the county, and the CONUS Fund. And then internal service funds where the primary customer base is inside county government. And some examples there are the Fringe Benefit Fund, the IT Fund, and the Facilities Fund. So in terms of the numbers, behind each of those categories, the numbers are pretty easy to remember this year. Our total budget recommendation for FY 2023 is just over $1 billion, and almost exactly 50% of that is the general fund at $504 million. Our special revenue funds then are about 10% of the total, and the remaining 40% is those proprietary funds. Diving into the general fund in a little more depth here. Just rearrange my screen here so I can see these a little better. On the revenue side, in terms of what makes up the $504 million for the general fund, property taxes are projected to be about $286 million, so about 57% of the total. Intergovernmental revenues, which is basically the dollars that we receive from the state, either through revenue sharing or other programs, is about 14% of the total. And then charges for services, that are paid for either by businesses, residents, or local units in the county that utilize our services are about 25% of the total. On the expenditure side, personnel costs continue to be almost 2/3 of our total. And then the remainder is split pretty evenly between operating expenses and internal support, which is basically charges that the general fund is supporting for those internal service funds. This slide, splits the budget, that same $504 million up by department or by category of department. Really, public safety continues to be the largest component of our general fund at 40% of the total. That total includes the sheriff's office and the prosecutor's budget. The courts are about 15.5% of the total. So if you add up those two blue slices as sort of criminal justice as a larger category, we're at about 56% of the total. The various departments, including the health department and all of our central service departments that report up to the county executive, are just under 30% of the total. And then all of the other departments reporting to elected officials are about 6.5% of the total. Then we have about $39 million or 7.8%, which is the non-departmental category, where funds are appropriated in a central non-departmental section of the budget and then distributed out to departments as allocations are made for facility needs or IT needs or things of that nature. Our 5-year fiscal plan, this is another slide that you saw last week, but just to emphasize, again, we've closed that structural gap that's existed for a number of years with our ongoing revenues equal to our ongoing expenditures, and our use of fund balance at $2.6 million is only for clear one-time projects. Going forward, you can see that we're using cautious assumptions, and projecting our revenues to grow at the 2 to 3% range, with our expenditures growing at about that same range as over that period of time, and are not going to assume that higher inflation and the resulting increases in property tax revenues continue indefinitely. We'll continue to monitor that data and all the other data that affects our revenues on a regular basis.
Commissioner Moss has a question.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jen. Can you repeat that last bit you said? I didn't quite catch it all about inflation and all.
So, as we highlighted in the presentation last week, certainly we know that inflation has been high for the last year. That's affecting our current revenues. Will clearly affect our revenues for FY 2023, by increasing the rate at which taxable values can grow. But as we go forward into FY 2024 and beyond, we're not going to assume continued high inflation and continued higher property tax revenues. You know, if that occurs, we'll certainly adjust for it over time, but we don't want to, continue to make that assumption and overestimate our revenues until we've seen hard data.
So just to be sure I understand, you are not estimating, so you are estimating either decrease or no inflation in 2024?
Correct.
Thank you.
And that's not necessarily as a matter of making an economic prediction. You know, there are plenty of economists out there that are making those predictions, but as a matter of ensuring that our long-term projections in the budget are cautious and don't overestimate revenues.
Super. So that is the once again, excuse me, Madam Chair, through the chair. That is not that is the assumption that is being made for the budget going forward is little or no inflation in 2024, not only in revenue but also in expenditure.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can proceed, Mr. Jen.
All right. So in terms of the resources that are available to you and to the public, you know, there's a link there to the page where we house all of the budget documents that you can access online if you don't have your book with you. You know, actually from the county homepage, if you scroll down a screen, there's actually a big button that says county budget that you can click on, so you don't have to remember that link. You know, we produce 3 versions of the budget each year. You now have the county executive recommended budget that was delivered to you on July 1st. There will be a finance committee recommended version of the budget in late August after any amendments that the finance committee you know, opts to adopt are included. And then certainly we'll have the adopted budget, including any final adjustments through amendments at the full board level to be adopted no later than September 30th to be in place for the fiscal year that starts October 1st. So in terms of the county executive budget recommendation, there are 2 books you should now have a copy of. There's the full line item book, which is the formal document that has all the details by line item for each department. You know, that's actually the basis of the board adopting the budget each year. We have also provided, and I think you should have copies by now, of the categorical analysis and budget highlights book. That book kind of that book kind of pulls things up a level and gives you the totals by department and analyzes the larger variances from one year to the next year to explain why things are changing. So you'll see some common explanations across departments in terms of the 5% salary increase that's been recommended, plus the necessary adjustments in the fringe benefit rate. It's important to note that you'll see some IT development and maintenance department charges in FY22 that may not continue into FY23, since each year we want to make sure we're allocating those funds where they're needed throughout the year. And then lastly, just a note, you know, you'll see a lot of negative changes from FY22 to FY23. That's also often the result that there were one-time spending items in FY22 that aren't carrying forward to FY23. So that doesn't necessarily mean that there's any, you know, reduction in terms of ongoing personnel or other costs for those departments. Just a reminder, you know, there's a lot of detail in the budget book in terms of the number of line items, you know, and we want those line items to be a spending plan for departments, but really under the General Appropriations Act that's approved budget each year, departments are expected to manage their budgets within 3 categories: personnel expenditures, operating expenditures, internal support expenditures. So there is flexibility, to move things within particular line items as needs may shift over the course of a fiscal year. This slide, I wanted to highlight the professional service contract appendix, which is on pages 660 to 678 of the larger budget book. This is the second year this appendix has been included, so I just want to make sure there's clarity, in terms of what the purpose is. Per a resolution adopted in 2019, approval of the Board of Commissioners is required to appropriate funds for any professional service contract in excess of $250,000. I'm going to focus on that bullet. There's also a lower threshold for those contracts that don't go through a competitive bid event. We certainly try to avoid that and encourage departments, to competitively bid contracts wherever possible. That approval, to proceed basically with that competitive RFP can occur through one of 2 methods: inclusion in the appendix that's included in the budget book, and then if a contract purpose is not included in that appendix, there needs to be a separate notice and presentation to the Finance Committee. So, you'll see that appendix in the back of the book. It's sorted by department. Just to be as comprehensive and as transparent as possible, we've included all active and anticipated contracts in that appendix. But really the focus would be on those contracts that are expiring and are anticipated to go back out to competitive bid in FY 2023. So, certainly the departments under the county executive will highlight, any larger contracts that are expiring and need to go back out to bid, and are certainly happy to answer any questions you may have about the contracts in their section of the appendix as they come in for the budget hearings next month. And then lastly, just in terms of how the process has worked in the past and how we would expect it to work this year, we do expect there will be some amendments adopted to the recommendation we've put in front of you, either for some technical cleanup things, or as you or other commissioners have proposed amendments that you'd like to have considered. We'll maintain a list of those proposed amendments, that we'll provide to you as we move through the hearing process, but traditionally then we'll wait till the very end of the process and during the budget wrap-up session that's scheduled for the end of August, we'd adopt or consider those amendments as you're wrapping up the budget. There are 3 categories of amendments that we historically use. Section A would be any resolutions that are being that have been adopted or are being adopted now and weren't included in the budget recommendation, making sure we're accounting for those adjustments in the out years. Section B is any requests that are personnel related, and Section C would be any other requests that either the administration or any of you would be proposing. So, once that process has wrapped up, we would then account for those amendments and produce a Finance Committee recommended budget that would be considered by the board then in September before final adoption. So that concludes the presentation I have. Happy to answer questions that you might have now, and certainly, departments will be ready to talk about their individual budgets next month.
Thank you, Mr. Jen. I will open it to the commission, to the Finance Committee, Commissioner Powell, followed by Commissioner Moss, followed by Commissioner Cavell.
So I just had a question in regards to, we know inflation is on a rise, and I do know that we had discussions about providing a percentage amount in increase in salaries. But then I do see that there's a possibility that departments may have to take cuts again this year. And if that is the case, what is that percentage? Because it's almost like we're giving them and then we're taking it right back. I mean, that's just how my mind looks at it. Now, from a professional standpoint, in your world, it may look different, but that is how the perception is being perceived by me listening to what's happening. And I'm trying to figure out if, I mean, what are we doing? It's almost like, again, we're giving them the inflated amount, but then we're asking them to cut again. And I thought that we were trying to stay away from additional cuts years moving forward, but I may be misunderstood. That's why I'm asking the question for clarity. So could you clear that up for me? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Jen, please answer whether we are asking departments to cut their budget again this year, and expound on that.
Yes, absolutely. So, just a little bit of history, again, when the updated compensation plan was adopted by the board at the end of 2020, we had laid out the goals that we want to make our compensation levels more competitive, but also make our workforce more efficient. At the time, there had been laid out a goal of reducing the county workforce by 7 to 10% over 5 years because of developments over the last year, including higher revenues. On the property tax side, we've adjusted that goal to reducing the county workforce by 4% over 2 years. Last year, departments were given a 4% reduction target. We had a lot of departments that achieved that reduction target last year. So those departments were not asked to make any additional reductions this year. Okay. Those departments that hadn't gotten to the 4% last year were asked to make up the gap this year. We did hold public health and public safety harmless from having to make any additional reductions. So there are some smaller reductions in workforce all through attrition that are included in this budget, for a relatively small number of departments, and they'll highlight those as they come to you in their hearings next month. Again, I think the goal is, we want a lean workforce, but, a workforce that's paid on a competitive basis so that we've got the best possible talent and well-qualified employees to deliver services to our county's residents. So I hope that helps kind of lay out the history and where we are right now.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question, Commissioner?
I think it did, but this, this is a complicated. I'll give with Kyle another day to elaborate a little bit more, but I just wanted to call a question too.
Right.
So.
Nothing has changed since last year when we asked the departments to take a 4% cut, and some of them took it all at once last year, and other departments are going to have to make up what they didn't make last year of that 4%.
Oh, okay.
But there's nothing new that's being
Okay.
asked of them.
Thank you for breaking that down.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're right, it's complicated.
Succinct version of mine.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Jenna. By the way, I thank you for calling in from your undisclosed secure location there. And my family wouldn't put up with anything like that, I'll tell you. So thank you. Now, my question is, I'm going to continue on with Commissioner Powell's thing on inflation. I think it's quite simple, frankly. But so are you going to, what are the assumptions for inflation in 2023, or is it the same as in the Oakland County Economic Outlook document that we got in April? I believe it was April, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you. What is your basic assumption for inflation in 2023?
So it's really, you have to think about the lag in terms of how inflation affects our revenues, and there's a 1-year lag. So for 2022 revenues, it was 2021 inflation that affects taxable value growth under Proposal A and the Headley Amendment. So for 2023, it's 2022 inflation that will affect those things. We've seen inflation this year, reach up into the 8 to 9% range. And the monthly data continues to support that. However, Proposal A establishes that the highest that the cap can go on increases in taxable value for taxpayers in the county is 5%. So we are assuming that 5% cap will apply to taxable values for 2023. And that's what's built into our revenue assumptions as we go into 2024 and 2025. We're assuming a glide path back down, I think, to 3% for inflation in 2023, and then historical levels of 2% going forward. Certainly, if higher inflation persists, we're going to account for that, as we bring future budget recommendations to you, both on the revenue side and on the employee compensation side.
Thank you. That is so. You've already said it, that you're assuming a glide path down in 2023 from inflation. I'd like to also jump away from that's the revenue side, of course. But it also goes to the expenditure side. Not only the costs of stuff we're buying, but it also means, as I believe the Commissioner Powell was talking about with the employees, we're giving them a 5% wage increase, but if the rate of inflation is, it's 9% right now. That is not annualized, I understand that. But rate of inflation, they're already 4% down from the get-go. So you're going to start seeing, and we are seeing, represented employees of labor saying, wait a minute, now hold on, we want more. Now those of us, of course, who remember the 1970s remember the spiral, which is the devil to get under control, and you do that with a recession. Which I gather we're not going to define it anymore as 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth, but whatever it's defined as, it's defined as. But my big worry about is this entire document is based on assumptions that may well be invalid from the get-go, and that we might be talking about a wonderful document that is internally consistent and a beautiful thing that unfortunately begins to deviate from reality. And to say, okay, well, this is a great document and we'll fix it as we go along is, of course, the whole point of having a 3-year rolling budget. On the other hand, if at this point we know with a moral certainty that there are challenges coming up, that we know that inflation is here and it's loose, we can also possibly ascend that, but whatever the White House is calling it, it's 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth, however you want to cut it. And that's not good either, which creates its own pressures. It starts to soften the housing market, which leads to equalization. I'm concerned that this document, however internally consistent it is already unmoored from reality. And so that is, as we're talking in very general terms, and we can talk about the specifics going forward. My worry is that we're passing something that does not reflect what's going on. And I'm going to put that out right here and right now and be kind of a bear about it going forward. And I understand that you've got no real crystal ball. I remember when we, instead of a crystal ball, used a magic 8-ball, as you will remember. and Eileen Kowal will remember. But still, I don't know how you answer that, except that Commissioner Powell's concerns are quite correct, and I believe mine as well.
So I would just emphasize again, we're using assumptions that are based on hard data. We're erring on the side of future assumptions that ensure, that we're not going to get out of structural balance. County Executive Coulter talked last week about, all the other measures we're taking to make sure we're as prepared as possible for whatever may come, down the road in terms of changes in the economy, in terms of getting the budget into structural balance. in terms of the revisions to the fund balance we worked with you all on last year to protect, clearly designate and protect our rainy day fund, in terms of ensuring that departments are on alert that there's the possibility that we'll have to ask for additional reductions down the road. So we've really taken as much care as we can. Every budget is based on assumptions, and those assumptions will change over time. But we've really taken as much care as possible to make sure those assumptions are as solid as they can be, and leave us in the best possible position to react to any changes in the economy that would affect either our revenues or our expenditures.
Thank you. Of course, Bob Dadowin said the whole of a budget is contained in its assumptions. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moss. Next up, Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah. Thanks. Hi, Kyle. Is now an appropriate time to talk about the OCE attachment in our document? Or is this just kind of you're introducing us to the budget process? If we all look at our packet, there's a second attachment. There's the PowerPoint, and then there's something else.
I'm not familiar with what the second attachment is.
Oh, okay. It's like a 2-page thing. It just says the revenues of the Office of the County Executive and the expenditures, and then it talks about the personnel.
So I think that's specific to the budget for the County Executive Office, and I think we're planning, to make sure that there's a time scheduled, with the rest of the department budget hearings to talk about that.
So don't do that while you're on vacation right now.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Right.
Okay, no worries. That's fine then. Then the only question I had was, when do you mentioned the contracts and professional services. When is the appropriate time for us to talk about smart communications, Aramark, and Guidehouse?
Aramark would be appropriate to talk about at the sheriff's budget hearing. Guidehouse, we could talk about at either the county executive office hearing or the management budget hearing. And then smart communications, is that related to the jail?
Yeah, I don't think it's up for a while.
So I think
but
that would be appropriate for the sheriff's office hearing as well.
Okay, thank you. And I guess just because everyone's asking about inflation, one question I have is, as we know, while the CPI might say that inflation is 8 or 9%, inflation does not hit people or departments or units or entities of government or business the same way, right? So some people's inflation is 20%, some entities' inflation is 3%. So that being said, is when we look at the facilities part of the budget, is there some expected increase we should be ready for? Because I know they've come before us in economic development saying their costs have gone up.
Right, so I mean, clearly facility costs, in terms of materials and labor are up. I think that's affected probably the number of projects we're doing at this point, more so than, we haven't necessarily increased funding. We are planning to ramp funding up over time, to help deal with that kind of backlog that we have in terms of maintenance needs. That's something we'll be closely monitoring, over the next year and beyond, as we start to think about larger facility needs in terms of getting our facilities up to the appropriate standards. But your point is well taken that, that costs are increasing at different rates, depending on the service or good involved.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Cavell. Anybody else? I just have one question. It is about that OCE report where you talk about revenues. Fiscal year 21 looks sort of out of range with the rest of them. It looks like we ended up spending more money. Is that related to ARPA? Do you think that's why that spiked there?
That's, I would suspect it relates to CARES, but again, I'm not
CARES,
sure.
right.
Particular report, or at least have in my head which document you're looking at.
Well, that would be it's the bar charts about revenues, and fiscal year 21 is considerably higher, so I'm just asking if that was related to the federal money that came in.
The explanation, yes.
Okay. That's my only question. Okay, so we don't need to vote on this, I don't think. We're just receiving this presentation, and if there's no other questions for anybody.
Can we, because if this is supposed to be then the OCE hearing, because I thought all the hearings
No,
were.
this isn't.
No.
Right, okay.
No, we'll have plenty of hearings in the next 3 weeks,
But
so.
we will see the thing you were asking questions about again.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. Okay, anybody else? All right, if nobody has any other comments on this, we will move back to the main agenda.
Well, should we receive and file? then?
Yeah, let's receive and
Yeah,
file.
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Moss, supported by Commissioner Long, to receive and file the budget hearing report from the Office of the County Executive. So
That was Moss and Long, correct?
it was Moss and Long, yes. So let's prompt the vote to receive and file.
Because after all, he did it from his vacation, so.
He did.
Now
We
it's
need to make it
documented.
official.
So loyal.
I'm about to run or something.
Yes, so loyal. He did it from his vacation.
All right.
There was no one
How
in
will
the background
vote
saying.
yes?
something
Yeah, right.
either.
Okay.
I hope he's someplace nice.
Yeah, my wife would be like, hey, come on.
I vote yes. I signed out already.
Yeah, me
Okay.
too. I also vote.
Those two vote yes.
Colwell is the one I missed. Commissioner Colwell?
Cole, on receive and file.
She's a yes. All right.
That's 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Enjoy your vacation, Mr. Jen. He's gone already.
He's on vacation again.
Good for him.
Thank you.
Oh, cool.
All right.
The ghost of. Okay. Next up, we have our second public comment. Is there anybody from the public who cares to address us at this time? Okay, you can speak on any topic. You have 3 minutes.
Ross Baranco, Novi. I'll speak to item 7, communications. At the last board meeting, the board introduced a letter from DTE doing a, what do you call it, I forget the term for it, but kind of rebutting, saying well, anyway, that letter was introduced. So this board meeting, I'd like to see my letter introduced. I've emailed all 21 commissioners individually to the email addresses located on the internet, and that communications is not listed under communications here, which means that it seems like it's going to be omitted from the full board meeting, which it shouldn't be. And that communications is dated Monday, July 18th, 2022, 3:42 p.m. It's subject, authority to create a land bank, importance high, Oakland County Commissioners. According to the Supreme Court decision of Norton versus Shelby Township, that's in Tennessee, de facto government agencies cannot be created without specific powers to do so. Please guide me to the location within what document that the county commission has the authority to constitutionally create a de facto county land bank. If this is going to be a de jure land bank, please cite your authority. This is not a rhetorical question to be waved off like at public comment. Also, please explain how the board can approve a development plan for Lake Orion before the citizens of Lake Orion have seen and approved it. This email is being followed up on by a copy addressed to the Board of Commissioners by certified mail. The Board of Commissioners had that certified letter delivered by the U.S. Postal Service on the following morning at something like 8:43 a.m. And that communication isn't listed on here. And the certified letter is a little different from here because I had some misspellings that I corrected when I sent the certified letter. And I use de facto sometimes when I'm supposed to be using de jure, but I did that on purpose because I'm suspecting that what this commission has done is, in fact, has created a de facto agency that is unconstitutional and illegal, and I'm asking for the commission to show proof as to that it is a de jure constitutional and legal organization. And I think that's very important, and it hasn't been addressed, and it's been over a week. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Moss, did you have something you wanted to say?
I would just like to the chair, I believe earlier in this meeting, you did, I believe you, was it you or?
Yes, it was
someone
me.
Who stated the authority for the land bank, which had been detailed by, I believe, Corporation Counsel. And perhaps the speaker, we could give him a copy of the Corporation Counsel's opinion on that matter that does say that we do indeed have the authority to create the land bank, because it's a very serious question, and I certainly respect it. And the fact that we do have a legal opinion, or at least a memorandum from Corporation Counsel to that effect, I think if we could give the gentleman that would be a good thing.
Thank you, Commissioner Moss.
I also think it should be a matter of
Excuse me?
get at the full board as well.
Yes, so the request came in, and within the last week, we have investigated it. And before you came to the meeting, I read a statement specifically calling out the legal authority by which we did create the land bank, and I asked to have that printed so that if people came today, you could get a copy of that. So we will make sure you have that before you leave here. But basically, the authority is through state statute.
The thing is that if the
Excuse me. We'll talk offline, but I just wanted to say that I did get that information. I cited it at the beginning of this meeting, and so we have answered the question, and we'll make sure you get the information that you requested. Okay, if there's nothing else to come before the commission, I call this meeting adjourned at 1:05. Thanks, everybody. Did you?